Hello and welcome again to Money Tips. It's Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money. Now, you might think that investments like property would have performed very well over the last 10 years, and you may think that that's the best thing around. But I'm going to tell you a share that went up by 3,000% in the last decade. Now, you'd be surprised when you hear this. What do you think that company is? Actually, it's a shop, or it's a chain of stores, and despite the fact that we've seen the high street been devastated over the last 10 years, we've seen companies like Woolworths disappear altogether, and House of Fraser cut down, and even Debenhams cutting down, and other stores just disappearing off the face of the earth. Every few months we kept hearing about stores closing and electrical stores closing, all sorts of stores just disappearing. But this company has been the best performing share in the FT, that's the Financial Times 100 index, which is the index of the top 100 companies in the UK. And that company is JD Sports. This is the company that owns 2,500 shops all over the world. They call themselves the king of the trainers. And compared to their arch rival, which was Sports Direct, they've left them behind. JD Sports shares, as I said, have gone up by 3,000% in the last 10 years, whereas the shares in Sports Direct have halved since peaking in 2014. So that's not very good. Now, someone who bought £1,000 worth of JD Sports shares 10 years ago, do you know how much that will be worth now? £33,000. If you bought into the company at the turn of the century, that's 20 years ago, £1,000 will be worth £113,000. I think it'd be hard to find any property business that would have gone up by that much in the 10 years, and it's a passive investment. This will be buying shares in the company. Now, obviously, there are lots of companies that didn't do so well over the 10 years, and who would have thought a company selling trainers would do so well in the stock market? Other top performers, the top 10 here, the top 10, going on, counting down the top 10 here. Ashtead, the equipment supplier, manufacturer. Rightmove, this is a property website which has gone up by 1,200% in the last 10 years. Wellrose, the London Stock Exchange, which is a quoted company in itself, went up by 1,300%. A company called Halma, Spiro Sarco, Hargreaves Lansdown, which is the stockbroking firm, the online investment and stockbroking firm, gone up by 600% in the last 10 years, has made the owner a billionaire. And Barratt Developments, obviously house builder, and Persimmon house builders, they've gone up by 600% between them. And so that's, the house builders have done particularly well, and the shares are yielding very high yields, I think over 10% the last time I looked. And so, if you can get a high yielding share that's going up in value, that is a good investment. But obviously you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to know how to pick these companies. So I wouldn't just say go out and buy JD Sports, because it might not be the best performing share over the next 10 years. And you need to take your own advice on this. But that's just giving you an example of how the stock market can be a good investment, to a place to put your money in if you know what you're doing, and not everyone does. So my advice would be to take a course in how to invest in the stock market, read a book, or just do some research yourself. It's important that you know how it works, and how to buy shares and how to sell them, what they mean, what does the PE ratio mean, what does the yield mean, the dividend yield, and all these things. But anyway, that's just an example of one company that went up by 3,000% in the last 10 years, and several that have gone up by 600%. So what else has been happening? Well, in the last 10 years, obviously we've seen massive changes in the high street. We've seen a lot of stores disappear, we've seen companies disappear, and there's been a massive amount of change. 10 years ago, Gordon Brown, the last Labour government, last Labour leader, was in power. He lost the election then to David Cameron, and David Cameron formed a coalition with the Lib Dems, and then he then won a further election 5 years later outright. But then we had the Brexit situation, where the referendum was called eventually, and and now we're in a situation where Boris Johnson is in power, and we should be out of the European Union by the end of January, the 31st of January. And if you listen to this later on, I apologise for that. I might be telling you something you already know. But we've seen massive change, and I think in the coming years we are going to see even bigger changes, particularly with automation, AI, robotic technology taking over some of these lower paid jobs. That it's going to be tough for people, I think, at the scale where they're unskilled workers. You're already seeing things like there was some news today about imaging for breast cancer, and these are the scans that they do to detect breast cancer, and each scan looked at by a human has to be looked at by two doctors now, two people, two radiologists, and that takes time. It's painstaking work. They've developed an AI system, computer system that can do the job of that human, and at the moment they're doing it more accurately, making less mistakes and doing it faster. So you immediately lose one job there. It takes 10 years to train a radiographer. Now, I'm not saying all radiographers are going to lose their jobs, but it just shows you that's just one thing that AI is moving. And then they're saying, oh, it's wonderful, we can do this, do that. But people are going to lose their jobs. Self-driving lorries, self-driving cars could take out millions of jobs in countries like America, where they rely on these trucks to drive thousands and thousands of miles. And obviously with a human being, they're going to get tired, they may have accidents, they may make mistakes. So with these robotic lorries that can self-drive over long periods on these big highways, well, that could take out a couple of million jobs in America alone. And it's not only these these manual types of jobs that they're going to take. They could read documents, they could check legal documents. There's so many things that these machines can do. And I'm not talking about these robots that you see in science fiction movies. These are very clever computer systems. Sometimes they could be robots in the sense of even care work, where they've got, in Japan, they've developed robots that can do care work and do jobs around the house. But that's just the very thin end of the wedge. That's just small things. So these are the things that you've got to look out for in the next 10 years. And I think we're all going to have to maybe retrain several times to make sure that we can keep learning and keep adapting to the changes that are ahead. So I know it sounds a little bit of doom and gloom. On the other hand, I think certainly in the UK we're going to see an uplift in investment from the government to start projects and start spending money again to end this austerity, and that should filter down to all of us in one way or another once that money starts going in. We're still in debt. The world is still in debt, and banks and central banks of companies are still printing lots of money, which I don't know how they're going to we'll get out of that one, because whenever countries printed money, it caused high inflation, as it did in Germany and Argentina, hyperinflation. But that's the way it is. They're pumping money into the economy so that we can all avoid a recession. But where it will end, I don't know. Good news are the other bit of good news coming up is that the Trump-China trade war should come to an end in January. They're hoping to sign an agreement so that things can settle back in, and the trade can go on. So there you go. As I said, best performing share on the stock market, JD Sports, 3,000%, 3,200% over a 10-year period. What about that? So there are returns to be made in the stock market as well as in things like property, but you've got to be careful in what you buy and take your own financial advice. So thanks for tuning in, and if you want to know how to manage your money, have a look at my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. I spent 25 years in financial services. I'm no longer in that, so you need your own financial advisor. And I've met thousands and thousands of people, and that's the experience I put into that book to show you how you can manage your money better. And as I said the other day, that if you can do one thing right in this coming year. If you can have one good New Year's resolution, it should be to learn to manage your money better and take care of your money. And I gave you a few tips in the previous episode, one of which was to have a spreadsheet to record everything that comes in and everything that goes out every month in your bank account, and actually write it down and look at that and see where it's going. Check your direct debits to see so you're not paying things you no longer need or you'd forgotten all about, and all these things are all in the book there. So have a look at that. And thanks for listening. Thanks for people tuning in tonight. I know it's a bit late now, but thanks to Magnolia Toe Step there. Thanks very much. And I will speak to you again probably on Monday now. So thanks for listening. This has been Charles Kelly, bringing you money tips. Hope you save, earn, invest, accumulate, and enjoy more money. Thank you.